the Speaker can address the public as well as the people of District Number 2, Grand Creek County, on the workings of its legislative agenda and that of development and other issues in Grand Creek County. So again, you are welcome.
Thank you. Honorable, my name is Gerald, coordinating Front Page Africa newspaper. Thank you for accepting our invitation for this interview.
Sure.
Yes, you are back again. You recall yourself according to the speaker to discuss some national issue. How has it been since you returned?
Okay, so the main and primary purpose of this recall is, as you recall, the budget law has changed. We did a 6-month budget, which ends December. We need to do the FY22 budget. And you know, according to the law, the executive is supposed to submit that 2 months before the budget year begins. So in anticipation of the executive submission, we convene on the 18th of October. Mostly it has been organizational in scope while we await the submission of the executive.
Okay. Yeah, so yesterday there was an information that the speaker instructed the chief clerk to inform the executive to turn the budget, to submit the budget to the legislature. I think that was unprecedented. If the information is true, has it happened before? If so, then why the reminder?
Okay, so what actually happened, we gradually walked into it, is the chairman on the executive was mandated to inquire as to the status of the submission. There was some conversation, as you recall, between the speaker and the chief clerk, but procedurally we decided to have an instruction to the chairman of the executive to give an inquiry over to the executive as to when we can anticipate the submission.
Okay, Honorable Speaker, since we have a little bit of time, I hope we can talk a lot about other national issues. Can you give us a state of play about some priority bills apart from the national budget that is the senior leadership is looking at?
Well, we insisted upon most of what we are going to be looking at this point will probably be concession agreements in this short period, right? A lot of the bills we haven't seen or anticipate that there will be anything new that is not already in committee room. What we are going to be looking forward to, I understand we have a concession by a Chinese mining company, which is before us. There's an anticipation, although we have not yet received it, that the ArcelorMittal MDA, the revised version, will be coming to us. And so that's during this short session. It's only going to be about 2 months. The things we're going to be looking at.
There have been a lot of concerns from the public concerning this MDA, especially when it relates to the confidential clauses not being available to the public itself, the benefits the country stand to get. And recently in Nema County, residents, people that live in AML concession area, protest and ask their lawmakers to not agree to the amendment until they know what is in it. So what's the plan the House is looking at, especially in a 2 months period? Do you have the ample time to actually do due diligence by looking into that deal, taking into consideration the concern about from the citizens from Nema County?
We will exercise the requisite due diligence. Mm-hmm. So let me dissect this. There is no clause that restricts the public from knowing what's in the agreement. Mm-hmm. There's not a confidential clause that says this agreement cannot be revealed, mm-hmm. right? And by virtue of the fact that it's going to come to us, mm-hmm. it automatically becomes a public document. Mm-hmm. So everybody will have the opportunity to see what's in that NDA, revised NDA that has been signed. Now, going to the Nema County issue and going to the general issue that I think the lawmakers are going to have when it comes to ArcelorMittal are going to be, I think, 3 fundamentals. The first is most lawmakers are going to be concerned that all of the corporate social responsibility committed to in the previous MDA before this one was revised has been accomplished, okay, or have been substantially so. What you don't want is concessionaires having corporate social responsibility obligations, and then waiting or not achieving those, even though they are doing the mining, okay? Even though they are doing the mining, or even though they are doing the concession activity, you don't want them to set aside corporate social responsibility. Also, there are a lot of, in terms of labor agreements, okay? Because a lot of Liberians are employed in that regard. There may be some labor-related issues vis-a-vis things like what the Nima County people will be concerned about. So those issues need to be addressed. The other thing this legislature is going to be concerned about is how is the use and allocation of the sovereign assets, the roads and the rails and the port of Buchanan. There's a lot of speculation as to what the MDA does to those two assets. I'm not willing to speculate on it. I have not read the MDA myself to make a determination, but the legislature will be concerned as to how is the treatment of those sovereign assets vis-a-vis the ArcelorMittal MDA revised.
So that's a long process. So is the 2 months return break enough, especially when you have a budget to debate and other concession agreement? Is that enough, or would the AMLD be postponed to next year for deliberation?
I don't anticipate it to be delayed, because remember, the NDA is only an amendment, right? Mm-hmm. So we are not redoing the entire NDA. We are doing certain critical provisions of it. The minute it reaches us, right, there have been sufficient conversation around between us and the executive and some of the oversight committee. The minute it reaches us, we will be able to narrow down what the particular issues are. I am told, I'm informed, and I believe, for example, there has already been a report, an assessment report done by the Nima County Caucus in anticipation of this. So the minute that document hits, that assessment report will be compared to what is in the revised MDA. You can call a hearing. Within a week or two, we can narrow down whether or not we're going to pass that MDA or we're going to not pass it. I don't think it's going to be a long, drawn-out process, simply because the process has been engaged. The one thing I always remind the public, when they say, oh, you do things in 4G, we are working, almost 24/7. So all of this information we are consulting. There's a House of Representative chat room. I met with Senator Senator Jeremiah Kuhn on the issues in Nima County. We are all consulting. So by the time these issues get to us, we are familiar with them enough to have made a decision. In my case, again, as a lawyer, the one thing I always tell people, I never assume what is in a document. And sometimes when I read a document, I always go back and read it again, because sometimes what you read, what you imagine you read, is not what you read, or some things you miss, you will be able to pick it up. So we will read a document more than once, but I think when the executive submits it, if it submits it within the next week or two, there will be sufficient time by the time we leave in December to have made a substantive decision as to whether we're going to ratify it or we're going to hold it.
So there'll be public hearings as well?
I anticipate there will be public hearings, yes.
So the MDA has been held by the executive, has been in the interest of the Liberian people and some foreign partners, because it will strengthen foreign direct investment. Yes. So can we say the passage or the ratification is imminent?
Well, I'm sure the executive would not have signed an agreement that it did not believe accomplished what you just said. It was not in the interest of the Liberian people. When it comes here, it undergoes a little more scrutiny, right? So the executive looks at the national interest. When it comes here, there may be much more local and parochial interest, okay? To make sure indeed the national interest collides in cohesion with the local interest of where those mining concessions operate, okay? So those are some of the issues that will be looked at. As I pointed out to you, their corporate social responsibility. If you say you're going to build a school, did you build that school as part of the first phase of your NDA? If you didn't, why not? If you cannot live up to that part of your agreement, why should we extend it for you to make more concessions or agreement that you will not live up to? So those are the things we'll be putting under the microscope. As an overall investment, I would say Mitar, the AML operations in Liberia, is a net positive because it gives jobs, it brings foreign direct investment, it utilizes in a responsible way money interest we have, and it's just a matter of our oversight and our scrutiny before we ratify our next step.
Are you considering the possibility of looking at a different paradigm for this agreement? For example, right now, Liberia's focuses on generating revenue from this through royalties and taxes and job creation, essentially. But then there are other ideas coming to the table. I don't know if you've heard of them, but some people
The value added stuff?
Well, value added, but there's also the possibility of the country having an equity stake in the concession, so that Liberia's return on that investment can be much higher. We're bringing the land space, the manpower, and the resources in the ground to the table. The company is bringing their technology and their know-how, and together we work together, and we're only getting taxes out of it. Do you think that might be? Do you think that's such a fair deal after all?
No, I think that's.
And then we also, sorry, we also, and this is not just ArcelorMittal, but we're also looking at the Bauchico agreement and any other mineral development agreements going forward.
Okay, with my experience in these things, I would not. I think royalties, besides taxes, royalties on sales would be a key component in my mind. Let me tell you why I'm not excited about equity stakes. Because you only cash out of equity stakes to the extent that they are profits, right? That you can cash out of, or unless you are getting out. If it is designed to the equity stake as an investment tool in the concession that will increase over time, then maybe we can look at it. If it is designed as a short-term revenue generating source, I will have a little bit more hesitation because everything goes into the company operations, and they have control over those numbers in terms of what aspect to allocate to operational costs, what aspect to allocate to salaries, and what have you. When are you going to get a percentage of your equity in terms of returning to you? So if it's a long-term investment issue where this asset is going to grow over time, so we need equity in it, I will be for it. If it's a revenue generating short-term budgetary allocation, I don't think I will be looking at it that way. I think the royalties and an increase in royalties will probably be the way I go.
How is it safer to go with royalties and taxes?
Yes, as a short-term revenue generating tool. Yes.
I think a year ago, a member of the House suggested a radical move that the government should start to charge concession companies, parents company on their profit by 10% because, for example, AML will always sell to that parent company, and even if they get equity in the share, they can surcharge it and say they are not making profit. That's what happens every year. They are not making profit. They are overdone losses. So, is the House taking that light to at least initiate some radical move that even if it sells to your parent company, the profit from your parent company we can charge tax on maybe about 10%?
The legal problem you have with that is how are you taxing an entity who is not doing business or subject to your jurisdiction. The reason why they have the corporate veil that they usually create is because they want you to only hold AML Liberia to the agreement, and they will want to shield themselves. So how do you attach those profits they are making, which will not only be on Liberian operations, but it will be all around. It will be a tricky type of bookkeeping that you would need inner sources to do. I think what we need to do if we want to increase the royalties, we want to increase the taxes on sales, those things we can monitor. I will be for them. I will not be for piercing the corporate veil and going into corporate structuring and corporate networks. That way you can be very elusive and you may make less money than you anticipated.
So what about the value added addition, like for AML to turn a raw material into steel product and other things for export?
That is always in my mind. That is always the end goal, and that should be the goal. I don't know if this MDA, revised MDA, achieved that. That is one of the things I would be looking at as to what value added incentive or value added avenues have been created by this MDA so that we take advantage of those kind of things, those plants that are located here and those production that is here. I am looking at, and I want us to move to or more, and this is on the agricultural side, move towards, rather than concessions, more towards a small scale growers program, okay, where we can take ownership of our own farms and our own equipment given the capacity.
So shortly before Jara comes in, so are you telling me that the House this time around will do due diligence, will look into the due tolerance and take into consideration everything, the public view, the public criticism, to ensure that this deal is the best for the country?
But when have the House not? Okay, the House always does that.
There have been instances where the House passed deal by 4G and there's a complaint.
But I'm telling you, when you say 4G, it means if we say with our public hearing, then we have to look at it. But when you say 4G, it's not really 4G because even before it comes here, I anticipate I will see that document probably this weekend. I'll probably be able to go through it this weekend. I'll have my relevant questions. You know, I have an appointment to talk to some of the people from AML. So I already have a substantial amount of knowledge to be able to make a decision one way or the other by the time it hits officially as to whether or not it's something I support.
Yeah.
Last question on the rail.
Sure.
Does the government of Liberia in this deal support exclusivity for ArcelorMittal to use the rail, or a shared paradigm for other, like the people who are interested in using it from Guinea, and then there's Solway who's going on the other side of ArcelorMittal, they might want to reuse the rail for shipping to Buchanan. Benefits for Liberia versus, you know, monogamous relationship with ArcelorMittal.
That's a good question, but as I told you, I haven't read it. Okay. What my concern would be, and as I said it, the legislature will want to make sure the sovereign assets of Liberia, the rail and the port, are substantially within the control of the government of Liberia and not the concessionaire. So when it comes, that is one of the language I will be looking for. Various people who have seen the documents have various interpretation of what it is. I haven't read it, so I cannot officially comment on what I think it says. But we will be looking to make sure that the ownership of the public resource, the public assets, is within the domain of the public.
Yes, Honorable Koffa, this has been Africa's problem. Pre-colonial problems where Africa's raw material were taken from the continent and shifted to the West. Post-colonial era, especially Liberia, that have been independent for more than 100 years. And we have Lamco, we have ArcelorMittal, the parent company, manufacturing steel, we have Firestone, manufacturing rubber products, we have you think what can be done to break this chain where these raw materials will be produced, the finished product, and exported from Africa and Liberia specifically? What can really be done? You've been thinking about that. Can it be legislated? What really needs to be done now that we have independent state, independent government to ensure that the raw materials are produced on the ground?
Okay, and I think someone used the term paradigm shift. Okay, that is what needs to be made substantially. We will need to say, we will not give out these assets, okay, even though we need the revenue right now, unless we have a plan to ensure that these assets are generally value added, to ensure that generally if you come here to mine iron ore, you're not just taking the ore, you're taking out the steel product. That will have to be a paradigm shift, and that will have to be a tough decision made by the government, because remember and imagine that right now everything we need is revenue, because we have domestic needs, okay? At some point, we will have to see whether we want to fulfill those domestic needs for a long-term strategy by which we incorporate or we encourage value addition and encourage the creation of these factories. The other thing that would be of concern is the transportation cost. The cost when the materials, when they are produced here, what is the cost of export? What in terms of competition on the world market, that will encourage people to come here, build the factories here, produce here, and leave out. So there's a whole macroeconomic discussion and dimension to this, but we need to put that on the table as a national plan and as a national objective.
So a couple of days ago, you were criticized by a lot of people for calling for the halt to illegal mining activities in Green Crew. Fortunately for you, the Minister of Mines listened to your call and took a decision to that effect. How are you feeling now that your position that many people criticize now being supported by the relevant authority?
Okay, so it wasn't necessarily my position, it was a caucus position. Okay. The caucus debated and came to a decision to request the Minister of Lands and Mines to take this action. Here is the problem we have, and it's the same problem the same thing we talked about in terms of paradigm shift that we just talked about in terms of value addition, right? So you have these miners that go into Grand Creek County and they mine, and the small time gold miners, right? And some foreign, some locals. And they're not there in the gold fields all day because for charity. They are making money. Our position and my position is, in the process of that activity, there is some environmental degradation. You know, right now, when you hear flooding in Grand Creek, it's a result of mining. Some of the water is no longer usable for safe drinking. There are some environmental destruction going on. There are two things need to happen. What is the benefit of our people to this mining activity? All this money that is generated from mining in Grand Creek County, okay, where is it ending up? What share of it benefits our people? That's the number one thing. How is it returned? You can't be mining in a community, right? And then the community is looking to the lawmaker for a hand pump. You follow me? You know, that miner or those group of miners combined probably make a lot more money than I can dream of in a year. So why would you be mining in a community? You can't even put a hand pump there, okay? The people go to the lawmaker and say, lawmaker, put a hand pump there. Why are you in a community where you're probably having children also, young children, and there is no school there, or the school is in such a dilapidated condition, okay? Where is this money going? Why are you mining, and when you finish mining, you destroy the environment, you leave, okay? You got open fields, you got ditches, you got flooding going on, and there is no attempt to remedy the destruction. There is no fund set aside to say, after these people leave, here is the money we're going to use for cleanup, land reclamation, and other activities that we can use for that. Where is that plan as you are individually taking it off, and when collectively, when we look at everything you're taking, it's a lot of money. You go to some communities, you pay as low as $2,000 a year, or you build a little guest house that costs less than $10,000, you know, with our proper facilities, and you walk away. Okay, and then it becomes the lawmaker's responsibility to ensure the welfare of the communities. I'm saying fair is fair. First, we must make sure the money you make in Grand Creek is substantially spent in Grand Creek and substantially goes towards the benefit of the people. And two, the environment must not be substantially destroyed as a result of your activity without any reclamation or any remedial activity in the background. So we take money for you in the front end, and we can create an escrow account in the back end. So when you leave, we can say, okay, they have been here for 2 years. Their environmental protection fund is in the neighborhood of $10,000. In the $10,000, we'll use it now to come grade a place, maybe plant some trees or do some other activities. So all those ditches you're creating and all the waste and the dump you're putting in the river, we can be able to clean it up and fix it. That's all my point is. Now, people are saying, oh, you know, because the mining interests are a lot and they will have influence in the election, if you take a radical strategy like that, you may not be elected. And my point simply is, go jump in the lake.
So are you worried that this plan, are you worried about the sustainability of these halting mining activities in Grand Creek, especially when we know that the country doesn't have enough civilian manpower to enforce a lot of things? So
that's an excellent question. Yes, I'm worried. Because the last time I embarked upon this in 2018, when I was a fresh lawmaker, just got elected, very excited. I was doing something good. I spent $9,000 of my own money with the PSU and the police to go into Grand Creek County, only for people to be very elusive because our citizens were hiding them, and it became a very discouraging effort. Yes, I'm concerned. The Ministry of Lands and Mines wouldn't have the enforcement capacity to be able to go in Grand Creek and shut all the mining down, number one. So we have enlisted the aid of the Ministry of Justice, okay? I think they will be able to help us provide some security. And then we have to educate our people. Don't protect these people. Show us where they are. Do not house them for, you know, you have somebody who barely surviving on maybe 5,000 LD a month. Somebody comes and gives them $200 a month. They will hire them. Okay, we need to deconstruct that network and that cabal to make sure that it is not individual benefit you're looking at. It's the benefit for your children and your children's future, as well as the sustainability of this county and this resource. Because once that resource finishes, those people are gone.
I love the position. I love your statement. Really, say you was not elected for re-election, but you're looking at the next generation,
Right.
And that's great. I hope all our lawmakers can develop such a mindset. But then maybe to ask you questions relating to criticism against the entire House of Representatives.
Sure.
Yeah, we live in the 21st century, and if you check, it's quite difficult to access anything about the House from far away. Committee reports is not made public. Let's say you come and run after some committees to get it, when it should have been posted on a public medium to be accessed. We don't know the voting records of lawmakers. It's very hard to trace. And the House has not been audited yet. It complains that all of ministries and agencies are corrupt for transparency. In a nutshell, Liberian people are saying that the House of Representatives is not transparent, it's not accountable to the people. Do you think that is a fair thing for the House to be doing that in this 21st century? Is still operating like in the 19th century?
No, what you see now, when I told them, the journalists then will jump behind me and say he's now starting. It's a shared responsibility, right? You are right. Okay, so we don't have a website, we post every committee report. But it's unfair to say we are operating in secrecy when all of y'all can be there every day when we're in session, right? You see who's voting for what. If there's an important bill coming, or okay, we don't have, and we don't have an electronic voting system where you say all in favor and I press a button and you say Representative Koffa voted for X. But at the same time, you can see overall who's voting for what, right? Reports. Committee reports are read on the floor. Okay, maybe they're not posted on a website, but somebody can go and say, can I see a copy of that committee report? You know, people hail individual lawmakers for coming up and saying what's in the budget. It is not a secret document. You know, nobody is being transparent by coming and saying, oh, lawmakers making $10,000 a month. It's right there in the document. If somebody is interested in how much I make, if you walk in my office, I'm on an obligation to show it to you. Okay, I don't post it on a website, or I don't stand in public and announce it, but that information is not being hidden from anyone. And it is no magic that nobody is a hero for revealing it, other than the fact that maybe the journalists are not doing their homework.
But for the general public, right, in the 21st century, and for accountability and transparency, the general public at all times should have access to the House document. It will be.
But that's why we have a fourth estate.
It will be a volume. If you.
But that's why we have a fourth estate,
whatever makes the news.
Because the general public can read. Will not be able to come here. We can make 5 million copies of the budget document.
Yeah.
You exist, so you can come and say, Representative Koffa, I want a copy of the budget. I can send it to you by WhatsApp. I can pay my own money and tell my staff to make a copy of the budget for this person. Okay, you people go and go through it and say, where is this item in the budget? Where is your salary in the budget? Where is your operation in the budget? Where is your point in the budget? All those things you can ask me about. And if I don't reveal it, then you can say that lawmaker was not transparent because he didn't tell me where his point was. So we have obligation, right? I'm not saying, and I'm not running away from the fact that maybe we should have a website or we should have things to post on. I'm myself developing a website from our office. And I think there's a committee, you know, that's responsible for that, working slowly, but it's shared responsibility.
Yeah, but this is my point, Honorable.
Sure.
In the South region, Liberia House of Representatives is the only one that doesn't have a public, like a website that the public can access.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm telling you.
Okay.
Sierra don't have, Guinea have, yet there's nothing. So if I'm in Green Crew and want to access a particular document for online for a research protocol, I'm going to find it difficult. You're spending the payment way for Green Crew or for Nima County when even the budget document you talk about, I have access to the budget document because the Ministry of Finance post it on their website. And so we expect the House to do the same. Why is that happening? Why is this not happening? Do you think that's
let me concede that you when you win that argument. It's a matter of information technology, and I think we'll try to have to do better in terms of putting that information out there.
Yeah, so Honorable, let's come back to your position as Deputy Speaker. You started, as you said, as representative, and now you're in the position as Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives. What have been some of the experience since you were sent there to the job?
I did not realize how hard the work was. I'm working most days by 7, either at home or here in the office, and I leave maybe after 6 and go home and conclude work by 8 if I don't have any other things to do. Because as Deputy Speaker, you have more than just your constituents. You have 72 other lawmakers who are your constituents. You have issues you have to resolve. You have administrative issues. He's talking about technology now. We have to run behind the telecommunication, the special committee set up to do the House's website and all of that. We have to whip those things in line. We have to follow transparency issues with the House of Representatives. We have to answer members' questions on, oh, we are coming back. What are the implications of our coming back? We have to do a lot more as in the Deputy Speaker's chair than an ordinary lawmaker would in terms of pertaining to his constituency or working on the committee that he's assigned.
So you sometimes preside in the absence of a speaker.
Correct.
And recently some of the lawmakers were hailing you for being in control and for being tolerant. So in presiding, what is the experience you get in presiding? What is sometimes the challenges in holding the gavel?
Well, the challenges in holding the gavel is keeping order. You know, no lawmaker will tell you, I don't work for you. You know, I mean, you can't tell me what to do. So it's a process of persuasion, okay, and how you treat your colleagues, they will treat you. You know, I try to make sure I give all of them respect in our private and public dealings, so that when I gavel you down, I expect you to show me that same respect. And I think that's the only way we will be able to maintain order on our floor, but we cannot necessarily maintain it back home.
Okay, so I'll get back to the issue of the brand visibility, but I appreciate this thing you have taken concerning the war crime code issue. And in your party right now, I think so far you're one of the few lawmakers of the few parties still that is actually pushing for this issue, the war crime code. And when the Senate came out recommending JIC, you were not happy with it. You criticized that move, and you make a lot of points. But I'm actually concerned. I'm actually concerned about the stand the president took when the document, especially the executive, the document is the TRC report for implementation. It has taken over more than a decade that the TRC report has not been.
President, we are talking more than a decade.
No, I said the TRC report. So it has not been implemented. So do you think the president was wrongfully advised to seek advice from the House, especially at a time when you know there are a lot of people in the Senate or in the House of Representatives that do not favor the establishment of the war crime code?
No, but it is. I don't think the president was ill-advised. I think that was the right move to make, because this issue of war crimes code, in spite of our own individual position and stance on it, is still a national issue, and an issue that goes to the heart of our dealings with each other as a people. The House has been very slow on it because most members will not take a real position on the issue of war crimes code unless they go in their district and have real engagement with their citizens on it. It is that important to them. Now, for me as a lawyer, I look at the issue and, you know, I kind of sort of sometimes give my opinion when I shouldn't be giving. But me as a lawyer, I look at the dynamics of the war crimes infrastructure. And I think for this country to move forward, it will be important that we engage in this exercise. Yes, the longer we wait, the more we become complacent of that. And the reason why it is important is that so that nobody in the future can think that impunity will go unpunished, all right? But justice delayed is also justice denied. I don't think the president was wrong for referring it. I don't think the legislature, especially the House, is wrong for trying to do community engagement, so that when a House member takes a position on this war crimes issue, it can be the position of his constituents. So
do you think at this point right now, the anti-war crime code group have won right now, looking at the obstacle to trying to bring JRC to investigate TRC reports, and that will take a long time before the code established? Do you think for now they are in the lead?
I don't think there's an anti-war crimes code and a pro-war crimes code group here. I think we all want to get there. We just want to get there in different manner because it has taken so long for the implementation of the TRC. So maybe this concept of the JIC was meant to revalidate whatever is in there. I think it's not necessary because I thought it was well researched and well written. But it's just a way to get to the same point.
Okay, last on the work rank issue, the president recently in a speech at UNGA told his colleagues that he await the lower house on a recommendation before the executive can decide how to act. So now that you're in a very prominent leadership position in the house, you're a very pro lawmaker for work rank. You can go to print to say it's sorry to say that, but you're a pro lawmaker for the work rank issue. How would the house recommendation be different from the Senate? Will you influence it in a way that it calls for some of the radical change you propose, like repatriation to victims, speed establishment of the court? How different would the House bill, a recommendation be from the Senate?
I'm not sure, simply because the House's position is we want to do our legislative engagement on this issue before we come with a position. But I'll tell you, again, as you just said, war crimes must include victim compensation, justice to the perpetrators, and a concept and a process by which we ensure never again that this sort of thing will happen in Liberia.
Okay, so if looking at Liberia and your and as a deputy speaker, if you have given the chance right now to make some changes in the country to improve the socio-economic dynamic of this country, what area were you going to tackle first?
Agriculture.
Why agriculture?
Because I think that's I'm impressed, and I heard the other day that the budget might reach 700 million. If it does, and we're actually able to generate 700 million, that would be great. I think the next frontier for Liberia is agriculture. Probably better late than never. What we need to begin to invest in and have a discussion around is how do we empower the small-scale farmers from moving from subsistence farming to feeding their community, feeding their counties, feeding the nation, and feeding the world, right? That is, we need to provide capacity. Maybe you can have an area where you have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 farmers sharing the same kind of equipment that government provides over time, right? You have cultivators, you have other things, you have the technology that an individual farmer may not be able to afford, so he can only cultivate 1 acre, but because the government brings in machinery, he can afford to cultivate 20 acres. Okay, then when he finishes with that, he sends it to his neighbor, his neighbor cultivate his 20 acres, and before too long, most of our arable land will be in farming, and that way we can harvest, and we can either sell to ourselves or sell to each other. That will cut out individual going to just brush 1 little lot or 1 little plot to be able to grow sufficient rice to feed him and his family during the off-farming season. So I think I would look at agriculture as a more holistic way and mechanized and technology-driven agriculture to be able to expand this economy. There is nowhere else to go, but that's how we have.
So how do you intend to influence that position into the national budget?
Well, recently we invited a group from South Africa, which is affiliated with John Deere in the United States, to come in and do a presentation on us on mechanized farming and how you set up our technology. We assigned that to the chair on agriculture, Prince Topa. Next week, when the Minister of Agriculture comes, we'll have an update on the process. And I think within a year or so, not 2022 budget, but probably 2023 budget, we'll be able to allocate some $70 million that is required for the initial infusion for this kind of program.
Okay,
Malabo Declaration. The Malabo Declaration.
What is that?
It's the declaration that requires signatory countries in Liberia to commit a certain percentage of their national budget.
10% of the national budget to agriculture.
I think we can do more than 10%. I think we should. It's a matter of necessity.
Here's the thing, and I agree with you, and the thing here is that I just talking with somebody yesterday who was lamenting the fact that everything we want to do for ourselves, we're going to seek donor support, and it becomes shameful at a certain extent, especially when it comes to feeding ourselves. And the big question there is why not? And so USAID brings in tens of millions, FAO, WFP, they're all getting all this money, but at the end of the day, we're not seeing any real tangible impact in agriculture, going forward. So especially, food security and these cash crops like cocoa, coffee, and those kind of things that need to start performing in our favor and bringing in the foreign exchange at the same time.
I agree with you, simply because I think most of it has been to helping the small farmer to grow sufficient enough to feed himself, and maybe take small to the market. We need to look at an industrialized type of agriculture. Okay, even as you say in the cash crops arena, we need to be able to, and for $70 million, we understand we can initiate a program where we bring the machines. The small farmer and his neighbor can only cultivate maybe 2 acres. That machine can do almost 100 acres at the same time that the small farmers can do it. So if we industrialize our agricultural approach, our agricultural process and mechanism, and then develop a system of farm to market where the old LPMC approach is developed and expanded, where, I watched a news clip on India where the Indian farmers are protesting because the government has decided that no longer we will be the middleman. Mm-hmm. And they say, if you are not the middleman, we won't be able to do anything. Because what it is now is that if the government steps in and says, we will buy all that you produce, okay? Anything you produce, we'll buy it. All you produce, we'll buy it. He will produce as much as he can because he's selling to the government. He's not waiting for some capitalist to come and say, oh, this rice is substandard or what have you. The onus and the risk is on the government. The government goes out and makes these deals, or the government hires intermediaries, brokers who make these deals to sell these products or to put them on the market. So I think it is when we expand our paradigm on the industrialization of agriculture, I think that's where we'll really be able to meaningfully achieve anything.
So relating to Green Crew County, let's come back to your county.
Sure.
The country is about to celebrate 2 years anniversary, and Green Crew is
200.
200. And then the Green Crew is one of the country rich in tourism, tourism potential. Yet it is highly, to get the Green Crew is difficult.
Correct.
And the facility to attract tourism is not really there, but there's historical value that tourism can go there. So what is the caucus doing to see how the people of Green Crew County can benefit from these 200 anniversary celebrations, the road conditions and all the things, the problem the people are facing? What role are you playing to solve that?
We started just last week. One of the foremost tourist experts in the country is from Grand Crew. As a matter of fact, we worked with Mr. Best's namesake, the late Baltimore. He has a book on Liberian tourism, much of it featured Grand Crew. We want to see how we incorporate that in the 200-year celebration. Of course, that would take some form of infrastructure planning, as you talked about, in terms of both accessibility by land and air. We are renovating, working on renovating some of the major airports in Grand Crew. So we would like for it to, the president's visit the last time in Grand Crew brought a lot of revelation to people who were not from Grand Crew, a lot of government officials and citizens who traveled along with President Congo, or who just went there to meet the president, of how beautiful Grand Crew is. Everybody talking about tourism. So we will be working on that line in the 200 celebration to open up Grand Crew so the eyes of the world can see what a beautiful place it is.
So in terms of development in your district, what are you doing to improve the lives of the people, even though we expect their lives supposed to improve through the bills and all of things you pass, but the way the society is built, we expect our lawmakers to improve our life physically. So what are you doing in that light?
Okay, that's good. In the next 2 weeks, we will be releasing what we call our legacy report. Because oftentimes, when you are in the middle of this, it's hard to document and articulate what you are doing, especially when you're in a county, a rural county that have vast needs. Okay, it is not our responsibility, but we're building schools. It is not our responsibility, but we're building hand pumps. It is not our responsibility, but we are catering to the education needs of our citizens. So we have a lot going on in Grand Crew, just on a one-on-one basis, on a community basis, on a district basis, and on a county basis, working either individually in our office, working with our caucus, or lobbying the government to make sure some of the benefits come there. Now, when you look at a rural county like Grand Crew, where the road infrastructure is at a devastation, everything is a drop in the bucket, okay? What you need is a massive infusion of infrastructure and capital development to get Grand Crew to where it needs to be. How do we accomplish that? It is a question of legislative give and take, right? The last time we requested $500,000 for Grand Crew, my colleagues only gave me $50,000. Why? Because if Fonati Koffa can get $500,000, you, my lawmaker, why you can get only $500,000? So that the legislative politics. So we try to get it bit by bit. At some point, okay, and I suspect within the next year or two, the citizens of Grand Crew will have to get together, come up with a massive development plan in all areas, health, education, and the public welfare. And we have to be able to push in a more generalized lobbying efforts with the national government to say the Southeast matter, Grand Crew is critical to the Southeast. Just imagine, Ivory Coast is the largest economy in the Mana River Basin, right? It's next to Grand Crew. A truck coming from Ivory Coast, trading with Ivory Coast. The truck leaves from Ivory Coast, and you spend weeks on the road because it's probably coming to Monrovia, and you can't get through. During this rainy season, you have all those trucks stuck in the mud. The cost of goods goes up as a result. So the development of the Southeast, the improvement of Southeast Road is not just a benefit for Grand Crew or Maryland or Grand Chile. It's a benefit for the entire country. So we should all say, because we are next to the largest economy in the Mana River Basin, we ought to take advantage of that. Even the CLSG electricity that's coming on the CLSG pipeline, almost 80 megawatts of it is coming from Ivory Coast alone. Okay, most of the excess capacity is coming from Ivory Coast. So we have to see the benefit of a deeper relationship, economic relationship with that, build our roads, okay, and let the economic activity happen.
Yes, you talk about agriculture being the way, but education too. You also been talking about education, and the results from the county in the national exams, the WAS, has not been favorable.
Sure.
What is your office thinking about that? What are you doing to engage your colleagues to address the issue?
That's an excellent question. So, in the caucus last sitting 2 weeks ago, we decided to call an education sitting in December. What is this sitting going to entail? We're going to have several educational experts. Then we'll have local people. We'll have students. We'll have teachers. We'll have over a 2 or 3 day period sit down and say, why are we getting the kind of results we are from Grand Crew? What do we need to do, and how do we get there? What is it going to cost? We will come up with a plan at the sitting that will generate into a resolution that the caucus can work on. One of the things that I think was a disservice to Grand Crew, and maybe not only Grand Crew, to much of Liberia, is the retirement of the teachers. You know what the Ministry of Education, when they did? They decided that you reach 65, you are retired. It didn't replace you. Okay? As a result, a lot of schools in Grand Crew started to shut down. I had to go in my district to those very retired teachers, some of who are able-bodied men, and say, look, I beg you. I can't pay you what the government can pay you, but I can give you small stipend if you return back to the school, so the school can shut down. So you got the people leaving from their retirement, where government tell them you are retired, but you are not replaced, to where they are coming back to the classrooms, so we can keep the classrooms, keep the schools open. I think that was the disservice, regardless of the rationale of the Ministry of Education or the Ministry of Finance in terms of budgetary control. That was simply devastating to a county like Grand Crew, where you have most of the schools, most of the elementary schools especially, are shutting down because there are no teachers.
Lastly,
quickly, and schools being in deplorable condition. The Barclayville School, one of the premier schools in the county, and other schools. What have been some of your intervention in renovating these schools?
Okay, so we got $50,000 for the renovation of Barclayville High School. We know that we will get some money for Sastan High School in Bois in 2022. I'm talking from a district level. There are other schools in district number 1 that may also be up for renovation. We constructing 4 schools, okay, that will replace or add on to the educational system because the schools are so deplorable. The heartbreak is that Bridge International will go in Grand Crew and you see a dilapidated mud house called a school, where when the kids sit in it, everything's dropping on them, so the little white shirt they wear, right, comes out yellow at the end of the day, and they will put a big, nice looking sign with beautiful children on that sign in a uniform, and they say Abridge School. All right? The building is just as important in the impacting of education as the material. So we go in and say, okay, we have to replace this school, we have to replace this school, we have to replace this school. Of course, to replace one school, especially when you're doing it in Grand Crew, where you have to where a bag of cement is what, $28 rather than $7 or $8, it gets expensive.
So yes. Okay, so from my end, right? I'm glad that you agree that the poor visibility of the house has led to bad public perception.
No, I didn't agree. I conceded.
You consider, okay, that's the same thing. Similarly, so do you think the house is now in a position, right, to do the right thing so that the Liberian people that elects their lawmaker can stay anywhere, any place, to have access to information that is needed, to contact you right there, to send you email, to find out things, what their lawmaker is doing, at least so that they can be informed from a distant place?
Okay, yeah, so I consider with you that is an area in which we're lacking, and yes, we need to hurriedly improve upon it in terms of our information technology, the ability of citizens, you're right, to access what we are doing, the ability of citizens to access information from us, the ability of citizens to interact with us electronically, given the modern age. And that is something our committee has been set up. UCL has provided funding for. We just need to speed it up.
Yeah. So from finally from my end, you have come. You called a break short to come and discuss the budget and other national issues. And this budget, the schedule has been changed, as you said, to cut the calendar year, from May year to a calendar year. So what holistic approach are you taking about putting in place, or the coming out to coincide with the schedule year, instead of you cutting your break always to come back and discuss the budget? Are you thinking about changing your schedule?
That's an excellent question.
Yes. And lastly, because I may not be given a chance again. Lastly, you are coming by the time that the U.S. rate is depreciating rapidly against the local currency. It is getting stronger, but then strangely, the prices are not coming down. Has that reached you, and what the House or your office is thinking about doing to engage the central bank or relevant authorities to address this?
Okay. The first question I forgot was...
It has to do with your schedule to coincide with the budget planning.
Yes. So we will go back now constitutionally and adjust our schedule within the framework of the Constitution and the budget law, right? That's one of the things we will do as to what is our new break period and what is our new coming back period, to ensure that we meet up with the presidential submission, so that it will no longer be a special call by resolution. We will work on that. That will be announced before we close this session. As it relates to the depreciation, I think we can see that there has been some recall of a lot of mutilated notes on the Liberian market from the central bank that have caused the rate to fall. There is going to be an infusion of $4 billion in the economy, according to the central bank's plan that they agreed on last week, that may improve that during the course of the Christmas season. The issue of prices, all over the world, the freight prices, the freight costs went up as a result of COVID. And so that may have a direct correlation as to why prices are not coming down, because although the cost of production or the cost of the commodities are going down, the cost of freight is going up.
All right. Well, thanks ever so much.
All right.
Okay, thanks so much.
Good to see you.